Live. We are live. Yes. Chewy. We're live, my friend.
We're live, guys, and I'll go ahead and get this
There it is.
up and going.
I can't watch it on while we're doing it because it distracts me.
I get distracted, especially when some of those comments come in. But it's really important to watch them. Like that first time when we did it, we were in potato vision.
It was awesome.
It was.
It'll never. Potato vision can never be.
It's never going to happen again.
Hopefully not.
It's never going to happen again.
You never know.
Unless we got bad Wi-Fi.
Wi-Fi.
Oh man.
Wi-Fi. Yeah. So, welcome back to the podcast, Chewy, Eugene. Yeah. We are back for episode 7.
Yeah, guys, we weren't here last Monday because we were doing a podcast with Eli Knight, another black belt who runs a really good jiu-jitsu YouTube channel. If you guys haven't checked that podcast out, it's up on iTunes, Stitcher, Spotify, all that stuff, and you can check that out. Got one of my glasses there from
it's a beautiful glass.
It's a beautiful glass. Titus Glass Jitsu on Instagram. He sent those. And
what a name!
I know, right? So Adam and I did a video about the glasses that he sent, and we had this fake fight about the glass where he got the big, I get the big cup, he got the little cup, but yeah. I actually took the little cup because I drink less bourbon than Adam does.
But Adam can. If you guys don't know Adam, he can put down some bourbon. That man, I cannot.
He actually got rid of the bourbon for a while because he was cutting weight. He had to get down to lightweight.
That's crazy.
He lost like 20, 30 pounds.
Yeah, he looks good. He looks thin. So that was awesome. Man, Chewy, Master Worlds this weekend. It was a huge weekend. Las Vegas Open. We had Chad, one of our black belts from Derby City, out there competing. What division was he in? He went up 2 weight classes.
So Chad can make lightweight if he wants to, but Chad decided to go up a couple weight classes. Because he just saw some guys that would be a lot tougher for him, and he was thinking he wanted more of a challenge. Because his weight class at the time didn't have anybody really signed up, so he's like he wanted to go out there and really do it. So he moved up 2 weight classes, and he went in there into middle heavy, and so he's up against some strong dudes. And he ended up winning 3 matches and taking gold. And in particular the first match I was really stoked about because we had just worked on a bunch of different back attacks. You were here obviously,
right?
And he went in there and used those exactly. It was funny because it was on a Wednesday night that he was competing, and I was teaching nogi that night. And while I'm teaching the moves, I'm like, "Oh, guys, take a look!" And I show the video. Chad was using the same technique that we had been working on that week, and used it in competition at adult black belt level. So that to me, like when I'm a coach, that's one of my favorites is when you see someone that uses it immediately. So,
dude, how do you think? How long do you think he worked on that technique and to integrate it? Just what do you think it takes to even integrate that movement? Because it's something kind of foreign. You're not necessarily moving in that sequence is kind of foreign. So how do you think he was able to integrate it so well and actually use it at highest level?
I think here's the thing. When we've been working on this technique for about 2 weeks up to that point, we ended up doing a 3-week deep dive into the position, and we still have a couple more things I want to go over in it. But when you have someone like Chad, right? Chad's what I can, there's different types of people in jiu-jitsu, right? As far as techniques go, you've got collectors and then you got executors. Collectors, they collect techniques, right? Like those are the guys that, okay, cool, a million techniques. You got all the DVDs, you bought all the streaming series, right? Like, and a lot of times I say DVDs, we're talking about like streaming video series now. I don't really know many people that have DVDs, but it's the people that they go out there and they get all this stuff. But then somehow they can't use a lick of it. Chad's one of these guys, man. He's an executor. So you give him like one thing and he'll run with it, right? He's someone that will take a technique and it doesn't matter like what it is, he'll make it his own and he'll run with it. And so I was teaching some stuff and it was new to our system that we do. And he ran with it, man. He's been working on it and doing the drills that we do in class, taking those seriously. And then when he was rolling, he was really going after those positions over and over again. And it showed. So he went in there, and I mean, as soon as he got to that position, it was like instant. Boom, he just got the choke, got the grip. And that was one of the big things that we've been focusing on this week, or these last few weeks, was making sure that when you get to a good position, you don't just get there and like maintain, but as soon as you get there, you're already attacking. Like Saturday, we were talking about as soon as you take the back, you should be going for the kill grip immediately, right? Like I know that people like to get there and hold position for your 3 seconds, get your points, but to me, I find that a lot of times my best back attacks come from as soon as I take the position. Boom,
Yeah.
I'm immediately attacking the neck. And a lot of times that's where my submissions come from.
Well, there's so much going on in the transition.
Right.
You know, that's the time. Usually, you know, okay, you get your grips and,
Mhm.
and everything, or you get your hooks in and all that stuff. People are kind of anticipating.
Right.
You know, they're gonna, okay, now it's gonna go for my neck. But when you do that, that's a big thing.
Movement,
You know,
movement creates vulnerability, right? So you think about like a mount. If someone's in the bottom of a mount and their hands are really tight to their chest, for you guys that are listening to this, your elbows are in, hands are really tight, it's really hard to submit them.
Right.
But when they start to go for escapes, when they start to move and try to adjust their positioning, that's when the submissions really become available, because the movement creates that, right? The movement creates openings. It's why you can take a black belt, you know, like say Metamoris, there's some matches like this where the guys would just do nothing. They just lay there.
Right.
It's really hard to submit someone who's very skilled when they don't expose themselves. But when you start to go for escapes, when you start to go for, you know, techniques, you know, and things like that, that's where the space becomes available for the techniques to happen. So like you're saying, in that transition, there's movement, there's space, and in that space, there's vulnerability. And that's where you can find those submissions and those attacks.
Well, we've done drills where the person on bottom is mounted and their hands are in.
Mm-hmm.
And you just say, all right, you have a minute and a half. Try submit
Try
them.
not to
And
get
most of the time,
it's hard.
Yeah, it's freaking really tough.
I started noticing this one time because, you know, the submission only match just started to kind of come back around. This was in 2008 is when this match happened. And my buddy Dave Riley had a match. And he went against his other brown belt. And Dave Riley was, I mean, he was all over him. But the guy just balled up.
Right.
He wasn't going for the submission. He wasn't going for escapes. But Dave was hard pressed to get the submission. And, you know, I remember watching that and I was like, wow, what is he doing? You know, like, why is it so hard? You know, at the time I just didn't really understand, because I had never really seen anybody just ball up like that, you know, because the submission only was no time limit. In point-based matches, you don't really ever get the luxury of just laying down when you're being outpointed, right? You have to go.
Right.
So I've rolled with some people since then where when you get them in bad positions, it's like they just go down and get, like, lay down. Literally just lay down. And it's hard to submit them because they're not exposing themselves. Now, they're not going to escape, but it's at the same time, it's really hard to get their arms to come up and get the neck to expose, and so it makes it very difficult.
Yeah, I think that's where I like the submission-only format, but with, like, a judge's decision. So somebody wins and loses, so you can't just, it's not like a draw.
Right.
Because, I mean, you just lay there and there's a draw. It's kind of, you know, one person could obviously be the aggressor. And still nobody wins. It's kind of boring. You like to have a result. It's good to say, all right, I won or I lost, or there was a significant...
You want to have a finish. You want to have a finish, even if it's a point or a decision or whatever it is. You want to have a winner and a loser. Having no winner, no loser, it's such an anticlimactic way to end a match. You know, it's like, oh, you know, like... You know, plus it spurs activity because there is going to be a loser. You can't just have a draw.
Do you think, we were talking about that before the podcast, about adding heel hooks, you know, into IBJJF rules? Do you think that would make things more exciting? Like, in that aspect, open things up more? You know, if it's
maybe
no-gi.
You know, I think that, you know, because we were talking about this, and we'll get into it in just a minute. I think that, you know, the IBJJF, which is, you know, it's definitely a good tournament organization. They run good tournaments, you know, and for all their faults, and don't get me wrong, I criticize them just as much as the next person, but for all their faults, they run a good tournament. Because I remember years ago, and you still find them from time to time, I would go to these tournaments that ended up being very big. And a lot of people did not run these big tournaments very efficiently. There was one tournament in particular, it was the Arnold's. And in 2004, I did my first Arnold's Classic. And at the time, this was the biggest tournament this side of the Mississippi, because they would give away good prize money, like $3 to $5 grand. Right?
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and this is in 2004.
That's crazy.
Right, this is a lot of money back then, you know, especially for grappling.
It's a lot of money now.
Well, yeah, but I mean, but now you'll see, you know, like time to time, it's way more back then. It was almost unheard of. And you would get all these big name people. Well, during the gi day, you'd have all these, you know, normal people like myself competing. And I remember you would see mats that weren't running. You would see, like, the divisions would get jumbled up and they would go at the wrong times. I remember my white belt match, my first one, went around 7 o'clock. It was originally supposed to be at 4:30 or so.
PM.
7 o'clock p.m. And then my absolute match started at midnight. Right, and so that was kind of shitty.
It's insane.
Right. Okay. Now here's the kicker to this. So get done with my absolute match. I just didn't have it in me. Me and my buddy, we all go out to eat, get some food. We head back to our hotel. We were supposed to be back there by like 10 the next morning because the tournament was supposed to begin again at 11. Right. So we all get there at 10, and I mean this whole convention hall there in Ohio is packed with jiu-jitsu people. We're all sitting outside this room, and we're waiting, and waiting, and waiting, and nobody's there, and the room's not open. So everybody got up early that next morning. The tournament ran late. We got up early, and we're waiting for this damn thing to start again. And eventually, they come rolling in like 2 hours late, and boom, they open it up, and then they start going again. And again, you know, this was not unheard. This was known. Like if you go to the Arnold's, you know the tournament's going to be ran like shit, but you do it anyway because it's a prestigious tournament. For all their faults, IBGF runs a really good tournament. It runs smoothly. Now, that said, one of the things that I dislike about it, you know, is that you know, to me, if they're going to be the preeminent tournament, you know, in jiu-jitsu as far as points tournaments go, to me they need to put. I think they need to put a little focus on the no-gi, right? Because to me it seems like they put way more focus on the gi, right, than they do in the no-gi, right? Like the world champions in the gi are always more celebrated. They're more publicized than the world champions in the no-gi, right? It just doesn't seem like it gets much press. And I think that, you know, they need to start allowing things like heel hooks and these things in the no-gi. To me, I mean, again, my opinion means jack shit, but just if I was a businessman and I wanted more people to do my tournament, if we're thinking just pure dollars and cents, I would want to say, okay, the market tells me that they want heel hooks in no-gi, right? Mm-hmm. No one really gives that. No one in the gi really puts up much of a fuss about heel hooks in the gi, right?
Right.
They're like, ah, whatever, okay. But in the no-gi, it's kind of widely accepted that heel hooks are a part of that game. So if I was a guy just thinking about this, I would say, well, the market says they want heel hooks in the no-gi. Let's give them heel hooks. Let's give them those weapons, especially at black belt and brown belt level. There should be no problem. To me, even at purple belt level, if you can't deal with heel hooks and leg locks at a purple belt level, what are you doing? You know, especially in this day and age, right? They're so prevalent. And so to me, like, they need to start allowing those, because I think it's one of those things where that's one of the big complaints about their no-gi divisions is like, man, they don't allow all these different submissions. You know, it's like, why not?
Well, I wonder if it's maybe because obviously whoever runs it, whoever's the head of the IBJJF, if it's something, they're like an old school jiu-jitsu guy that maybe, you know, there's still kind of that stigma with leg locks. Yeah. Number one. Number two is injuries. Maybe like, oh, we're going to see a lot more injuries.
But there's injuries no matter what. I mean,
we're
not playing patty cake.
Man, I don't know the severity of some of the injuries. I guess, you know, like you can. I don't know. It's one of those things where like you can get pretty substantial injury from like a leg lock, like an inverted, you know, ankle lock or something like an inverted heel hook. I mean, you can blow out somebody's ACL, and that's 6 months.
But at the same time, if someone cranks a kimura, you can tear their shoulder to shreds. True. I mean, you know, to me, it all comes down to, again, like, okay, if you're gonna, you know, and again, maybe you test run. Black belts get heel hooks. Only black belts. Because again, if you're a black belt, you're a professional, right? You're no like. You should know this stuff. Sure. And so if you get caught in something, you'll know to tap, and if you catch something, you'll know how to apply it correctly. And I think that would be a great way to like run it. You know, like let's see. And honestly, one of my big problems with the IBGF sometimes is you get these damn people that get into like 50-50. And there's no way to check that position without that heel hook there. Because when you get caught in a 50-50, it's not impossible. But man, it is difficult to get out of a damn position, especially if you get a guy that's really good. Like a couple years ago, Chad went against a guy who had 50-50, and he like latched his lapel around like the thing. And so Chad easily, if he could have had a heel hook, could have just ripped it. But he couldn't because it wasn't available, especially in the gi, right? So you're just sitting there like teeter-tottering, and you go on an advantage. And it's like the worst, to me, it's like the worst jiu-jitsu. You know, it's like, there's nothing that I hate watching it more than anything, because you're just like, at that point, you know what it turns into. It turns into this stalling match where guys play seesaw with each other. Sometimes they break apart, or sometimes they seesaw for the whole match, and at the end, some guy comes up with his arms and goes, yeah! It's like, come on, dude. Like, you won by an advantage, but you didn't really win. You played the system a little bit, and it's like...
Well, it's kind of it, yeah. It's like sport jiu-jitsu. That's where you're really getting to sport jiu-jitsu. You know, it's like... You know, whether you're getting ready to get taken down, you kind of work your way towards the out-of-bounds line. They don't get the takedown.
And I agree with that, but I think that in sport jiu-jitsu, you can still have aggressive jiu-jitsu.
Absolutely.
You know, because there are guys that are incredibly aggressive in sport jiu-jitsu or anything, and I think that it's just one of those things where the rules always have to be adjusted to make sure that you get the... I mean, it is what it is. Jiu-jitsu players will, you know, any sport, whether it be jiu-jitsu, wrestling, sambo, any sort of grappling sport, they will adjust to the rules, and they will sometimes, you know, use them in little ways to try to sneak out of there. And I think that if you start seeing this kind of stuff, like, you need to address it. And I think that it's one of those positions where I think, honestly, what I would like to see, at least if nothing else, have a break. like if you get in a 50-50 position and like if you're there for like they do this in guard, right? Like if you're inside of your guard and you're not doing anything, they have a timer and they'll say, okay, like, you know, they'll combatch, they'll give you a warning. They're sitting in 50-50 not doing a damn thing, just tell them to stand back up, you know, like all right, we're gonna restart the match again.
But that's not like a set rule. Like
it's not a set rule,
you know, because I did Charlotte, I was on with Charlotte or Atlanta, and the guy jumped guard on me and kept me in his guard for 5 minutes or 6 minutes, and he ended up winning on advantage.
I know. It's
and I couldn't. The guy's he had
no,
a phenomenal guard.
You weren't the only one that he did that to. No, I get that, and so obviously that was his game plan. And even the guy that Chad went against this weekend in the finals, the guy they had a furious pace, and then the finals, the guy, you know, he was inside guard and he got that Bravo grip and he was just trying to hang on, and Chad had to really fight out of it to make sure that he broke that guard in the last couple minutes. So it does happen, but I think that, you know, again, if you're gonna run the preeminent jiu-jitsu tournament organization, if the market's saying, hey, we want heel hooks, at least in the no-gi, I think that's reasonable, you know?
Yeah, I wonder what's stopping. I don't know. And it could be some people just that are big, higher up jiu-jitsu people, or it's like, nah, we don't like that, or we don't train that, or we don't want that emphasized.
I think it would be interesting, and I think it would shake things up a little bit.
Yeah.
Because, I think it would change some things.
Yeah, you get some people that are kind of anti-IBJJF may kind of go into those tournaments.
Absolutely. And to me, again, just thinking of like it purely, and again, there's, you know, your moral qualms about it, about injuries or whatever aside, if we're talking about just like a business, right? To me, I'd be like, man, I can get way more people, because now we're saying all these guys that don't do our tournaments because they can't use a heel hook, well, now you can. Because I've seen people make that argument that they say, well, you know, I don't mind the points, but I can't use heel hooks, so I'm not going to do the tournaments. So you say, hey, man, like, come on in the fold. Like, let's do it. You can use heel hooks now. Come on in. I guarantee you get some more people doing it.
Yeah, maybe more. Yeah, just get more. I guess bigger names,
right?
You know, like Gordon Ryan or something. I don't know if he does any IBJJF.
I think he, you know, I remember he's been posting a lot more stuff about the gi and stuff. Right. But I think he says he wants to make a crack at like one of the big tournaments in the gi. So that'd be interesting to see.
Do you like there? So there was that, like, we were talking about that little award ceremony they had over the weekend. So at the Master Worlds.
Tell me more about it, because I saw, like, you know, like,
so it was like a ring ceremony. You're like, what the hell is so it was a bunch of these guys, Bruchesha and
I saw Bernardo B. Mosquita,
and then I think Gabby Garcia was there.
Kira Gracie, all those people.
Some of those people that have that I guess won the absolute worlds.
Yeah.
And I guess there's more of like I don't know if it's like a Hall of Fame or do you think? I kind of feel like I kind of like it because it makes kind of legitimizes kind of like, oh, we're the premier kind of organization, like we have a Hall of Fame or like this list of who's who that's kind of, you know, you're giving these rings out and they're supposed to be kind of meaningful as far as like, you know, I like that, I guess, but I don't know how much meaning it really has, how much clout it's got.
I mean, the meaning always comes to whatever you assign to it, right? Like, I mean, what does anything mean? It means what you think it means, right? Like, what does your brown belt mean? Well, it depends on you. I think it's a cool thing. Like, I think it's cool to give people some sort of recognition for those things that they did, you know, especially those guys fighting and things like that in those old matches and winning the absolutes. I don't know what the criteria was, because obviously there's guys that, you know, who've won absolute tournaments that, you know, weren't given rings. I think, like,
they may have not been there.
Maybe not been there. Okay, I don't know. And then I would want to know, did the Nogi guys get it? Like, did the Nogi world champions, did that one absolute, did they get a ring too? Or is it just because if it's just the gi, then you're basically making yourself a gi only organization. You know, that's what you're basically saying to people. This is what we focus on. And again, I don't know the judging criteria, so I might be getting something wrong. If you guys listening, if you guys know what the criteria was to get this ring, maybe you can throw your 2 cents in. But from what it looks like, it was like, you know, a bunch of people that won the gi tournaments. I don't know. So
yeah, absolutely. So do you think IBJJF emphasizes more gi versus no gi? And you had mentioned possibly that more non-Brazilians or American grapplers have won the no gi.
Yeah. So if I'm correct, like, because I mean, there's very, very few Americans or non-Brazilians that have won the gi world championships. Whereas I've seen more Americans both place and win the Nogi Worlds, right? Like, you know, because I remember back, like, you know, like, I don't know all the different names, but I believe there's been JT Torres. I think he either placed or won. I want to say DJ Jackson one year. I believe that I believe in 2012 maybe. I can't remember, but I believe that there's been more of them that have been able to do it. So I'm not sure.
Yeah. Do you think there's a reason why? More.
Probably they just grew up in it, man.
Yeah.
I mean, I
More
don't.
wrestling background or base.
Yeah, I don't know for sure, but I think that we have in our, like, say, when we're younger, we have access to, like, when we were younger. Now it's a little different, but back in the day we had access to wrestling.
Right.
You know, but now jiu-jitsu is becoming more and more available. I think it'll change as time goes on, because you're starting to see. I think an American won this last past year in the gi. I can't remember, but what I'm saying is with people that are growing up in the gi, they have a better chance. You know what I mean? Like, whereas, like, when all right, I just started training in the gi when I was 18, but I've been wrestling since I was 10.
Mm-hmm.
There's no reason, there's no wonder why your no gi's better.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
you just had more experience in it.
Yeah, I mean, I think probably as far as growing up, the best base or the best sport to get into, like I would argue for maybe gymnastics or something like that.
Gymnastics is good, transferable to everything.
Good, yeah, but like what we said, the freakazoid or whatever, the guys, the 10th planet,
Breakdancing,
they were break dancers, super strong, and control their body, and that's maybe why we're seeing this big push for like a lot of these naturalistic movements now, and like the Ido Portal type stuff, because people are incorporating that a lot more.
Yeah, I've been doing some from Ryan Hurst. He runs like a gold medal bodies, GMB Fitness, and he gave me access to one of his programs, and I think it's useful.
What do you think? What do you like about it?
Well, I started doing it while I was injured, when I couldn't do much jiu-jitsu, and I just wanted to do it as a way to kind of do some active recovery and stuff like that, and I liked it. I thought that, and I've always enjoyed movement drills, because I think that when you think about jiu-jitsu, it's simply just a matter of giving your body a command, do this, and then your body, your mind-body connection being able to sync with one another. Like, for instance, when I get guys that come to our class for the first time, I can tell the guys that have never done any sport before. You'll look at them, and when they start moving, like, they can't even do like a hip escape, even remotely, right? Like, you'll tell them to shrimp to the side, and they're like their hands start moving, and all
sequencing, coordination.
Right, exactly, because they've never done a sport, and regardless of the sport, even like a baseball player, right, has no transferable benefit seemingly to jiu-jitsu, but their mind-body connection, their ability to tell their body through their mind to look at something and be able to do that is stronger. Right, because they've been able to do things with their body that again, otherwise, people, if they sit around and do nothing, they're not athletic. When they come into it, they have to develop these neuromuscular connections.
Right,
and it's different, and I believe it's a lot more difficult. It's possible, but difficult as an adult.
Well, I think number one, your ability to learn.
Sure.
Like a skill. Like your body's like, oh, I can figure out, I know how to do the reps. They know how to learn. And the other thing I would say, maybe for baseball players, actually could be applicable just because of reaction time.
Sure.
Being able to, react in certain
what
positions.
I mean is on the surface,
not directly.
Right? Yeah, it's
not
like
directly.
On the surface you don't see it, but I mean, I think that every sport has some transferable benefit.
Right. No, that's interesting though. Like, I mean, I think gymnastics is one that I never even really thought about until you saw George St. Pierre doing so much of the body weight training and gymnastics training. Just I think it's a great start. Yeah. I mean, I played soccer growing up. I feel like soccer's got some benefit into it.
Well, soccer. You say that. Rich Shabowski, one of my black belts. Right, obviously you trained with him for years. He was a soccer player originally, and he was a good soccer player. Played in college and everything else. And his leg dexterity, like his ability to like snatch up triangles, was just out of control. Yeah. And I think that again, the reason he had such good dexterity with his legs was because he was able to play all that soccer.
Yeah, like in foot speed and kind of things like that.
Yeah,
it's great. And strong legs too. You kind of build that. I think when you build that when you're younger, you kind of retain that. Your body is always just a little bit stronger in certain areas. But speaking of IBJJF, I want to talk to you about Josh Hinger, and because that man's crazy.
Yeah,
he is out of his mind. Like, so he did 3 tournaments. He did the Las Vegas Open gi, the no-gi, and then the Master Worlds. He ended up having 13 matches in 2 days.
It's a lot. Well, 13 matches is a lot. Like, I remember when I was younger, having those kind of matches as like a white and blue belt sometimes.
Yeah. But
as a black belt, that's a lot because you're going against professional grapplers, man. And so that's pretty impressive.
Like 35 or 36.
Yeah, and if you saw his like one of his finals matches where he was down on points and he won it in the last bit, I mean, it was super impressive.
It's crazy. Like, and I guess he said, like, when he was thinking about it, it's like, I could do something pretty special. Like, all these, like, my divisions are going to align properly to where I'm going to be able to make it to all these matches. And I was like, man, that's just insane. It's insane to me because I think it takes a little more out of you than just like, you're really going. I mean, 100%. It's not like in the gym. You're kind of like, you can take a couple of rounds off if you want, kind of just, take. But you're every round counts, every match counts, and that's just, I think the physical toll that would take is insane.
Yeah, absolutely. It's really it's a ton, but yeah. I mean, he's able to do it. And he's out there training with monsters every day, so obviously it's working out for him.
I think that's him training at Atos, and they have that really high intensity training all the time. Is oh yeah.
It was the coffee cup.
Yeah,
it
sorry,
made a little pop.
That's what I was knocking.
Yeah, no.
That high intensity training is I think it just your body's just used to it.
That, man, people have more in them than they think.
Yeah.
I mean, like when you compete, man, like you can compete sore, you can compete like beat up. I've been in a couple multi-day tournaments where, after competing for 3 days straight, my body's absolutely wrecked, but I did it.
Right.
So it's possible. Just people don't like to. They get a little sore and like I'm done. There's plenty more in people's bodies than they think.
How have you been coming back from your knee? Like you've been back completely on the mats?
Knee's fine. So I'm getting ready. Chad and I are going to do the Nogi Pans together up in New York. And I'm also going to be doing, more than likely, doing a seminar up there in New Jersey. The day, like on Monday.
Same place you've been, or
no, different place. So if anybody's up there, come check us out. But we're getting ready for the Nogi Pans, and so I've been pushing it a lot more, and my knee's holding up just fine. That bruising's gone. I did a good leg lift yesterday. Everything's good. So yeah, I feel fine.
So you did a lot of the movement kind of stuff. Ryan Hurst kind of movement drills.
Yeah, I did a bunch.
In the meantime.
Yeah, I did a bunch of movement-based exercises. I lifted weights and I taught class. And the movement stuff was good just because it kind of got me into some weird, funky movements that I'm not going to find myself in day to day. And then this way I could kind of still not replicate jiu-jitsu, but just strengthen my body doing weird movements. And I don't know what else to say, how else to say, but basically I found a value years ago when I was I want to say that's what it was. I was a brown belt. Hanato Tavares, right? He came to the gym and he did a seminar. And during the seminar, he started off with the I don't know if you've heard of it, Gymnastica Natural. Like that was
like Gracie's.
Yeah, it was like one of the things that like the Ibero and the Gracies used to throw out. But the I'm looking at the thing, and so guy was asking the question. But when we did the movement drills, I really liked them, and so afterwards I went back to it and started doing my own, started doing some of the stuff I found on theirs, and I found that within a couple months of doing those, I started being able to like get into weird scrambles on the mat and be able to find my way out of it. You know what I mean? I don't know how else to sort of explain that, but I remember rolling with my my coach, one of my coaches and training partners, Kyle, who has a really nasty guard, and we'd always end up in these weird like positions that like you can't really like. It's not something someone teaches. It's just weird sort of entanglements with the body. And so from doing these movement drills, you're able to just kind of find your way through it because you're used to being in weird like adjustments with the body.
Yeah.
And so I like those kinds of drills. And I think one of the things that Ryan's series focused on was both flexibility, mobility, right? So there's some stretches involved. And then with these movements, absolute control. So it's about not just doing something funky, but really demonstrating control with your body. It's a great exercise, and there's definitely like a mobility component to where like my body feels better afterwards, right? It doesn't feel beaten up from it. It feels, man, my hips feel looser, my legs feel better, my shoulders feel a little bit better. And so that was kind of a really beneficial part to it. So as I was taking that time off, this active movement was helping sort of loosen things up.
So I think it's basically, because you train that all the time, even people that are learning to, say somebody with an ACL injury, and you're teaching them how to jump again, you may even put them in some compromised positions in a controlled environment to where it's not putting too much strain.
Right.
You're kind of almost giving your body feedback and giving like the stretch receptors and all that, those receptors in the joint.
Giving
like,
that PT talk.
Well, you're giving that, you're basically retraining your joint. Like, okay, you've been in this bad position before, this is how we get out. Or you've been in this bad position, this is how you engage and how you control that. So that tissue doesn't, fail.
I got you.
So you're basically putting yourself in a controlled environment in these situations that are kind of put you in a compromised position.
Sure.
But you're doing it in a way that's safe, and your brain's like, okay, we're okay here, and you're getting used to being in that position. Because if you get in an entanglement that you've never been in, and your knee's kind of torqued, and you've never done it before, you may move a certain way that you've no training in.
Okay.
Like you're like, oh, I've been here, so this is how I need to get out, or this is how your muscles are going to engage, or they're going to protect your joint. So yeah, so sometimes teaching even people how to squat
Yeah.
incorrectly or an incorrect position just to make sure they can be safe in there in case they ever get there. Like
Okay.
you land funny and
Cool.
your knee goes inward and you're like, oh well, my body's been. I'm not going to train that on a regular basis, but I'm going to
Yeah.
allow myself to get in that position in a controlled environment.
Yeah, and I also found that from doing it, also like I had less of a hiccup coming back.
Yeah.
You know, not that I'm pretty in shape, so it's not that big of a deal. But it just still there wasn't any at all.
Well,
So
your body was like it was just
it was already doing
smooth.
stuff.
Everybody was you had that tissue was already used to being moved. Still,
Yeah.
it's not like you shut it down completely and didn't do anything. You know, the one thing I did when I was injured was I did a lot of weightlifting too.
Mm-hmm.
I thought that was very beneficial.
Yeah, I mean, I always lift weights, but it was a chance for. I mean, I lifted
Mhm.
when I was out that week. I lifted, I think, 5 days that week.
Yeah.
So I basically broke up my split and then like made the workout smaller, and I would do a sauna set after each one. But I would do like a shorter workout sauna set, and I would do it every day because I was like, I'm not going to do jiu-jitsu, so I need something to do.
Well, you're kind of working around that. You're working around your dysfunction.
Yeah.
You're still getting that level of activation, that area where you're getting that work in, but
Well,
you're doing it in a way that's safe.
And this is something for all the guys listening, right? Like injuries are not a question of if, it's a question of when. We're not playing patty cake. We're doing some stuff that can be damaging to the body, and you got to be smart about it. And again, when people get injuries, they can vary. Sometimes they're really small, sometimes they're bigger. But one of the best things that you can do is when you're injured, don't ask yourself don't focus on what you can't do. Ask yourself what you can't do. Right? Like, so maybe you can drill, maybe you can do technique, maybe you can go lift weights, maybe you can go sit. Let's say you're so beat up you can't do anything. Go for a walk. Go sit in a sauna.
Mm-hmm.
Go get hungry for coming back, right? Like, so this way, like when you're sitting around there, you can think about all the stuff that you want to do, and then when you get ready to come back, man, you're so hungry to get back after it. So I think that doing those sorts of things is helpful because when you get hit with those injuries, instead of letting it tear you up and get you so upset, you can be like, no, I've been through this before. I know exactly what to do, and I'm going to focus on what I can do and get ready for the next phase of my training once I'm back.
All right, that mental aspect is such a God, it's terrible because I've just gotten back this past week. I've trained about 3 days, and being injured versus injuring someone else. I had an instance where we were just doing back take or controlling the back and going for chokes from the back, and a guy injured his rib when I was training with him.
Yeah.
And you feel so shitty about it, but it's like, we're not playing patty cake.
So for you guys watching this, right?
Here we go.
So Eugene, if you guys watch my Instagram channel, you would see this. So Eugene, I make a joke about him. So when he's a physical therapist and he does jiu-jitsu, and he also helps work on some of our guys that are injured. And so I say that for job security, he injures people, hands them his card afterwards. So after he wrecks some part of their body, he's like, "Oh, by the way, here's my card. You jiu-jitsu therapist.
All,
you're welcome."
Never happens. And number two, if you feel good about injuring an opponent, you're an asshole. Like I feel.
Oh, we're joking with you.
No, like
see how he gets upset.
No.
He gets so upset.
I feel the worst. Like you feel so bad, because you are responsible for your training partners.
You are.
Shit happens. Obviously, we're not playing patty cake like you said, but man, it's just. And we were talking about this a couple days ago about just constantly replaying in your head, shit, could I have done something different? Could I have? You feel bad, and I think you should have some feeling of feeling bad about it,
but the thing is we all know that it, yes, we don't want to hurt each other.
Right.
It's the intent that matters. Right. So that's where I think you have to really look is if you're rolling with your partner and your intent changes, where it goes from, hey, let's train hard, let's get after each other, let's push each other, let's build up each other up together, to you asshole, I just want to pass your guard. God, I'm so frustrated right now. Because again, people can point the finger at people, but I think that one of the beautiful things about jiu-jitsu is that it does give you you can get a deeper look at people sometimes. Like I've had guys come in before where they were super chill, super relaxed and mellow and happy, and then you roll with them and it's like intense, right? Like they're gripping and everything's stiff, and you're like, whoa, there's something underneath that guy that he doesn't show, right? Because again, we go in life with our armoring, right? Our social conditioning, our social armoring, so we don't really know each other, but a lot of times you can peer into that person a little bit more with that. And so I think that sometimes for ourselves, we can get if we're introspective enough, we can see some of our own bullshit. So maybe you get frustrated. Maybe that you get angry or something like that because maybe you weren't able to get something to work and your ego's getting in the way. Well, good. This is a good learning experience. Let's check it. Let's be mindful of that. But I think that when your intent changes, if your intention is he got injured even where your intention is you're just going for a technique and he gets injured and it happens. Something
Right.
happens. But if your intention was like you're pissed off, you're frustrated, and that's when they got injured, well then you should feel like an asshole because it's your fault. You could have been more safe, but you weren't because you were trying to go for something. You were trying to win, right, in the gym with one of your training partners, and you endangered them because of that. And so that's the problem. And so you got to like be mindful of that, because if the intent's okay, then it's whatever, it happens.
Yeah.
But it's when you start being reckless because you feel like you have to win, then that's the issue to me.
Yeah. No, well, you brought up some great points for sure. Just like, and Justin, who I felt bad because he's training for hands.
He's training for pants, but Justin, he got a cut. So guys, listen to this. Justin got a cut on his eye where he was going for a shot, and Eugene, like his like, what was it, your toe or something?
It was like the inside of my ankle.
Inside his ankle somehow grazed across his face and cut him right above his eye.
I was going for an Imanari roll.
Yeah, and so it just happens. I mean,
I was fucking around.
Him and I have headbutted each other so many times.
How did you had how long ago was when you had your nose broken?
My nose was broken in back, and it's been about 4 years.
How did that happen?
So my nose got broken. I was shooting in for a fireman's carry. So basically, I have a grip on the gi, right? And I, am getting the guy to come over top of me, and I drop to my knees to my sides. I'm turning sideways underneath the person to get up under his hips. And as I dropped, for some reason, his knee came up. And he was getting ready it was a guy named Jengus. And I think Jengus was getting ready for an MMA fight at the time. And so his knee just kind of came up and bam, smashed me right in the nose. Broke my nose into 3 places. And it was pretty gnarly. But I remember
it was bad.
It was. And it was on our Monday takedown night. So, we basically were doing kicking the mat. So everybody's on the wall waiting for their turn. I dropped down to my knees and I put my palms over my nose. And I could feel some warmth there.
Oh boy!
And I was like, well, maybe just a bloody nose, no big deal, And I look up to all the guys on the wall, and everybody just goes like at the same time, ooh! And I was like, oh man, when that happens, you're fucked up. Yeah. And so I got up and I went to I looked at Jengus, and Jengus, it's like he saw some like monster staring at him. He just looked like wide eyed, and I'm like, you could just tell it's really bad. So I go to the bathroom. I look, and my nose is like on the other side of my face. And, he was like, dude, I'm so sorry, whatever. And I was like, it's cool, man. It happens. Accident. I know you didn't mean to. Right. It is what it is. I went to the emergency room, got it checked out, and they sent me to a specialist, and he then had surgery on it, got it to put it back in place, and that was that.
God, yeah, the emotions, like being on one side, being the person that gets injured versus the one that injures somebody else, it's because you're never mad at them. Mm-hmm. You never get mad at them. You're like, well, shit happens, like we're... What? Somebody said something.
I mean, I'm listening to you. So since we have this live, I guess we'll go and interact with you bastards.
All right.
I just want to throw out a shout out right now to Conversational Skill. He's throwing out some harsh ones at us. He says the sexual tension in the room is intense. You can cut it with a knife. And then the other one he just said was just like I was talking about being like they're super cool, whatever, but on the surface, He says, just like this conversation, smooth and low-key on the surface, hairy, sweaty, intimate, angry, and lustful underneath. I'm surprised they haven't turned off the candle and lit some scented candles.
Oh, my God,
dude. So Conversational Skill, I appreciate you, and I commend you on your ridiculousness, but cut it out because it's making it hard for me to concentrate.
A toenail scratch on my knee.
Yeah.
So he's talking about toenail scratch.
And we'll do some Q&A at the end, guy.
So let's talk about, there's some fights over the weekend. I want to ask you about that. I sent you the video.
Man, yeah.
So it was a Yuri Alcantara and Corey Sandhagen or something. Yeah. And it was on this UFC this past weekend. It was like a triangle armbar combo from the side.
Oh my God, it was so nasty.
And the dude had his arm, completely extended. Mm-hmm. And so we were kind of breaking down. I had you watch it. And like, what was your take on that whole submission sequence?
Dude, I was looking at the guy's arm, and it's just I commend him on his bravery, right? His bravery for facing down the fear, whatever,
stupidity,
whatever you want to call it, right? It definitely takes some courage to sit there and let your arm get just mangled by another human being. But Mike, I wonder how bad was his arm the next day, right? Like, I don't know. Maybe is he super flexible? Like, because you as a PT, you can see that a little bit more and better with a better knowledge than I can. But to my understanding, you have a little latch right here, this little bone latch that basically prevents it from going too far. And then once you go past that point, like obviously you start to pop the capsules in the arm, but once it gets past that point, basically you're looking at some serious like damage to your elbow joint.
Yeah, possibly.
You know, and so to me, he got back up and he did really well and won that fight afterwards because the other guy was spent. Because the other guy, to me, I always think about this because you see this even in jiu-jitsu sometimes. You'll see guys like get caught in toe holds. There was a big name black belt.
Hamulo, I think.
No. I'm not going to say that Hamulo's an example, but there's another one I was going to use because Hamulo lost that match because his foot broke. But there was another match where another big name black belt, I'm not going to say the name, but a friend of mine trained with him. And it was right after a match where they were involved in a tournament and they had a toe hold. And they like just destroyed this person's foot. Now, the announcers were watching and going, oh, he must be really flexible. And my buddy's like, no, dude. He goes, his foot was getting cracked and popped all through it. So the next week in training, he had this guy out, right, for a seminar. He's rolling with him, and the guy was like, do not touch my foot. It hurt. Like, it's all wrapped up, and it was so sensitive. The guy couldn't use it because his foot was getting destroyed. And to me, whenever you see that, again, I commend people for their courage to stand that down and just, I guess, go for it. I wouldn't do it. But it's like playing chess and getting checkmate, and then the person just keeps moving pieces. You're like, no, I'm just going to keep playing, right? Like, wait a second, right? Like, so maybe you spent a lot of pieces to, like, maybe you let him take some pieces to put yourself in a position to get the checkmate, but then they keep moving, you know? And when you go for a submission, a lot of times you have to expend energy to go for it. So this fight this weekend, this guy had he went for the submission, he had the position, he's using all of his energy to break this guy's arm, and he's like moving it around, he's punching him in the face, and the guy gets up at his arms in different angles. And then the guy gets up and starts punching him, and it's just like the same thing. It's like, you're like, fuck. You're like, what are you going to do? And this is another reason why I talk about, I did a video on it. If I'm going to, like, if I'm in a fight situation on the street, right? Or in a fight situation, I tend to go for chokes more than arm locks because of the fact that guys can eat arm locks, especially with that adrenaline going. Like, they can eat them a little bit more. Because, you know, like when you injure a joint, sometimes you're okay for a little bit. And then after everything slows down, the blood flows throughout, then it gets terrible. Whereas a choke, you go night-night, right? So I'll put you in a choke, you go night-night. So it was terrible. So I went on this long rant. But yeah, that's kind of where I was going with it, where I thought about it.
What about that situation in the gym? Because you do see that. Like, I remember I was a white belt, and I really didn't know a bunch. It was when I was in another gym. The guy literally had me in an arm bar, and I stood up, and I was holding him.
Yeah.
And the coach at the time was like, let him go. Like, he told the other guy to let me go. Because I didn't know. I didn't want to tap. You don't want to give up. But, like, I think some of it is, you know, when you're looking at white belts, a knowledge thing. It's like they maybe don't know the positioning, or they don't know, because it doesn't always hurt. You feel pressure, a little strain, a little stress, but it doesn't always hurt.
Right. But as you know, everything's cumulative. So while you're doing this, like, you might not hurt, but there's stress being put on that joint, and eventually that's just going to catch up to you.
You brought up a great point on one of your videos on, it was can openers, or is it can opener?
Neck crank type stuff, yeah.
And you're like, well, can you do it? Is it legal? Yeah, is a legit submission? Yes, but it's one of those that can really,
especially long term, over and over and over again, man. Like, I mean, like, what was it? Big John McCarthy was on Joe Rogan, and he was talking about, like, he was just having someone show a Darce choke, and it put some pressure on his neck. He had to go get his fucking spine fused. Yeah, right. It's like it's one thing. A lot of times when you're younger, you don't realize the damage, and then as you get older, you realize, ooh, I got to be careful. Yeah. Because you only get one flesh suit to ride on the rock, man, and that's it, dude. Like, you get one little flesh suit to ride on the spinning rock, and then that's the only thing you get. And so you got to, especially with, like, the spine, man, like, for your C's and your L's, right? You got to protect those damn things.
Well, that's the thing, you know. I was reading some stuff about inverted guards and going inverted all the time, and
I think it's a terrible idea to do it all the time.
Right. Well, but see, people get really good at it.
So
good at it.
But here's something I do, and you know I do this. I rotate my tires. Right? Like, so you get a car, you take it in, you get your tires rotated so that there's even wear on the tread amongst all those tires, right? I do the same thing with my game. If my fingers are jacked up from grabbing the gi too much, I don't grab the gi. I go underhooks and overhooks. If my shoulders get jacked up from overhooks and overhooks where people will crank, right, with like whizzers, I go to grips. If if I've been playing a bunch of for instance, with the back mount, you have to pinch off your legs. So my hips get tight. All right, cool. Well, I'm going to play a different position this week, so this way I don't make it too tight. So you have to kind of like run around. You always have your A game in your back pocket to use, and you come back around to it. But I think it's a smart idea. The thing is, it's easy to do what you want to do, right? It's easy to play your best game and just fuck around.
Right.
It takes a lot of focus to be purposeful with your game and not do the same thing over and over again. This is one of the reasons why people have huge plateaus in their games where they feel like they're stuck in a rut. Because I'll ask them, like, what are you doing differently? Nope, same thing I'm always doing. Well, great, you're gonna run into a rut. But if you take the time to say, listen, let me bring something new into the game. Let me go somewhere different I haven't been before. Let me go on an adventure into a different technique or a different position. Boom, you give it a couple weeks, you'll start having this explosion of like new stuff coming out. You'll feel like your game's alive again. It's like a relationship, right? Like if you and your old lady, if you guys don't ever do anything new together, the relationship's gonna be complacent, and you're gonna feel like you're just going through a rut, and you're not gonna want to like hang out with each other. You're gonna be like, that fucking bitch, whatever. But then if you like say, hey, let's go to this new restaurant. Hey, let's go to a trip to a new city. Let's go on to a vacation we haven't been to. Let's have some new experiences together. It kind of rekindles things, right? I know that for me and Jess, we've been together for about 4 years. We'll go on a vacation together somewhere we've never been before, and it's like a new adventure.
Yeah.
Right? Same thing with your game. Obviously, you're not going to, like, whatever. Anyway.
Are you talking about me?
No.
My game person?
No, my game. But like with my game, for instance, like, right? Like adding some of this new back stuff.
Yeah, for sure.
Adding some of these new back attacks, right? Like, we've been doing this for 3 weeks, and I'm on like an adventure right now with this back game. And man, by the end of it, like, I've come up with like several different variations to submissions that I just figured out, and I've also got about 3 more entries into the back mount that I've never been shown before that I just figured out from playing around the position because I went on an adventure for a while.
Right.
Because I kind of got away from my back mount for a bit, and now I came back, and so it's like it's all new again. You know, so it's one of those things. How the hell did we get on that subject?
I don't know. Just switching stuff up. Injuries.
Injuries. Well, golly. Oh, rotating the tires.
And then
invert.
Chewy went into sex advice.
I didn't go into
relationship advice. I know it's kind of podcast. You know, I do something different, or not different, but similar to what you're doing. Like I play a lot of loop chokes.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't really go for loop chokes when I train because I jacked my finger up so bad.
Sure.
Tore my ligament in my finger at a tournament. Actually doing a loop choke.
But it's but that said, for you guys listening, it's like Eugene's best damn move, man. Like he'll go to a tournament and he'll purposely say, I'm not going to do any loop chokes today, and then somehow you end up choking three guys out left and right.
Put their heads there. Let me a cross collar. So, but it's just there. Like some moves are natural. Like I don't remember ever learning a loop choke.
Right.
I'm sure somebody taught it to me. I just remember getting that cross collar grip and somebody coming in and just hitting the choke, and I was like, what the hell is this? Why is this so natural?
It's stuck.
Why is this so
Everybody's
natural?
got moves that are just natural to them.
Right.
Yeah.
It was weird, and so over time I was like known as like the loop choke.
That's
guy
your move,
in the gym. That's because I would just hit it all the time.
And that's another neat thing because I know we have a lot of white belts who watch your channel. A lot of people are wondering like what's going to be their move, right? Like you don't know, man. And a lot of times the move finds you. Right, because it like half guard became my best position, and it was one of those things where like I never set out to be the half guard guy or a half guard guy or a Kimura guy, but the move found me and it just felt right, and somehow I ended up doing it over and over again.
And then you build off of that. Like, then you're like, all right, so I've got this. Then what can I transition? Because people start to know your game at the gym, so you start transitioning to other stuff. When we were working on the back take stuff, it was my first, my first week back, and I was just thinking about it because it was some different concepts, some different grips, some different positions. The choking arm,
right?
Usually choking arm is on the bottom. The choking arm was on top. So we were going through some different kind of setups, and it was really I had to think so much about it, So it was good. It was good to learn something.
It created something new in your game, and then we mixed it up with our own like stuff that we were already doing,
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah, it was good. It was good. I just love it. I just love coming back after being injured for a while. It was really nice to come back and learn something fresh, and also I felt really motivated to be back. I was really motivated to learn. So
that's right.
What you got?
No, nothing. I'm just writing stuff down for later when we do the Q&A.
Do you want to do it now? We can do Q&A now.
You want to do the Q&A? All right.
Yeah, let's do it. We're at like 48 minutes.
40 minutes, cool. So for you guys listening, Joe Clark is...
oh, God. When he gets...
So he says, how many classes does it take? So if you guys follow any of my my like Q&A type stuff, you'll see Joe Clark's stuff pop up from time to time. And Joe's he's a good friend of mine, one of my best friends, and he's my business partner, right? And so he's one of the guys that keeps his gym going, right? Like you see a lot of me, but he's one of those guys that's helping keep this thing going. And that's kind of his joke. He's actually pretty good. He has never been defeated as a white belt.
I think we don't answer the question, by the way.
I never answered the question because I've answered it already. I say one more class. Here's a question that came up just a second ago, and I wanted to answer this one because I actually used to run into this. This is from Mohsin Lala. Chewy, do you have any students that get foot cramps while rolling? Any idea why? I actually used to run into foot cramps when I first started training. It was for me improper hydration. So I mean, there could be some muscular issues. You can try, rolling your feet out with lacrosse balls and stuff like that, and maybe Eugene has something to say about that. But I found that by adding more salt into my diet, because here's the thing: a lot of people, they use caffeine to get up for training.
Right.
So you got caffeine, which is going to deplete you of salts. And then if you're not eating a good diet or you're not getting some food prior to training, you're going into training just you don't have everything you need. And so I find that adding a good amount of salt before training seems to help. And if it's a really hard training session, I try to get some fast acting carbs right after training, and that really seems to help. I have a carb drink that I'll use sometimes. If not, I just find some sort of juice or something that I can get right into my bloodstream right after training. What do you think? Foot cramps? Anything that might be causing those?
Was it like the foot itself?
Yeah, probably. Like that foot. Like
it probably tends. I mean, you could kind of stretch out like we talked about. Do some dynamic stretching, like calf stretching, like rolling out the foot, like I said. But also a lot of times you don't sit there and tense up your foot all the time. Like because if you're going for a submission, you may tense your foot up or something. So it's not something your body.
It's like a new muscle. Like they got muscles.
Or you're overactivating, and the muscle goes into spasm.
Yes. Okay.
So I'm not saying go sit there and tense your foot up all the time, but maybe just warm up and make sure you're,
Do you think a lacrosse ball would be like helpful?
I think it's fine. Also, doing some calf stretches is great. Doing and even just some active warm up, some active range of motion with the ankle, just moving the ankle around. Make sure you're not cold, that type of thing.
Okay.
So it's different. I get them sometimes too. Who knows why? It could be diet, could be a little bit of activation of your foot.
And guys, if you want to throw in some questions at this point, feel free to. Let's see here. Zachary Lozano got a wrestling background. Any advice for getting it with jiu-jitsu? A couple things. One, I've done a couple videos on adjusting to wrestling. If you put in like jiu-jitsu, wrestling, BJJ on YouTube, you'll find several videos that I've done. One's on Stephen Kesting's channel, but I've done a couple on basically my transition from wrestling into jiu-jitsu and some of the things I found helpful. And then if you're looking for ways to make it work with jiu-jitsu, I've got a whole series on my website, Wrestling for BJJ, which is basically a series of takedowns and adjustments and movements using the grips in the gi and no gi that are common in jiu-jitsu to make the takedowns work. So let's see here. Conversational skill. I'm gonna go with you, bro, because you threw out some funny stuff. So you're throwing actually a real question out now. So we'll do this.
That's the guy's name. God,
conversation skill. Yeah, he says my arms are killing me by the end of class. My biceps specifically, not from being submitted, but just getting into side control amount or and dog fighting for submissions. Thoughts? I think one of the big issues that you might be running into is a lot of times people are incredibly tense in the beginning. If you want to throw this out, conversation skill, I don't know how long you've been training, but I know that a lot of people have problems where when they're in the beginning, they don't know the right time to be tense and the right time to be loose. If you look at really good jiu-jitsu practitioners, like high-level guys, their tempo is go, like tightness, and then they they get relaxed a little bit, and then they're kind of resting. Like if I go to a position, I might pass really hard, get to guard, I put that tenseness to secure side control, and then I relax. And I because I've established that position, and I take my time and I release those muscles, right? But in the beginning, I remember I would be so exhausted after one round because I would hold the tenseness the entire time. So I think that one of the things you might try to do is when you find yourself in like a position like a guard, mount, or whatever. When you find yourself in a position that's a little bit slower, that's not quite as dynamic as a guard passing situation or open guard, things like this, when you get to that mount position, side control, close guard, whatever it might be, take a deep breath. Like in, I used to do this all the time. This was my cue for a long time. I would take a deep breath in and then like 3 breaths out. So, and it helps kind of relax things out a little bit, and then you can kind of loosen up a little bit, and then you can kind of just play the game. But that'll help at least it helped me a lot getting rid of that tenseness.
There's one about how to deal. Here we go. Brian Robertson.
Thanks,
Brian, for the question. How to deal with someone who trains erratic when rolling. So someone
spazzy.
So, go ahead, Chewy. You answer that one.
Go ahead. So
okay, I'll answer.
Yeah.
Me. All right. So a lot of times I see that obviously people that are inexperienced or lower belts like a white belt, maybe even sometimes a blue, and even sometimes upper belts that train with black belts. I'm sure I get a little spazzy when you and I roll sometimes, but I kind of slow the tempo down. I slow the pace down. I work on, because a lot of times if I'm rolling with like a white belt, I try to play around. I try to kind of move and let them move. But if they're really erratic, they can kind of sometimes even hit you with something, an elbow or whatever, or kind of even injure you. So I try to be more position based, control based. I'll get a position to hold, then maybe I'll let them move a little bit, then I'll get another position to hold. I'll try to, and also just talk to them afterwards. Say, tell them to slow down a little bit, just to kind of, it's okay to move. We're gonna move. I'm not gonna try to kill you. I'm not gonna try to go after you and choke you out 100 times.
And I think it's one thing that it's also when you tell people that hey, slow down a little bit. It's always important to remember as like these white belts that are coming in, they don't have the ability to slow down. So you tell them, and that can be their long-term intention. But in the beginning, it just, man, it's not possible. Like they have, their body has no previous experience with what they're getting into. So they're like, and again, everybody's different. Some people are way more chill, and some people are super high energy. And so it's always like, it's different. I mean, for me, like to roll with me now, I can be super chill. I can go hard. But in the beginning, I was crazy. I was a spaz for sure. And so I think that what you're saying is true. Basically keep them in control. Don't play positions that are very like wide and dynamic.
Right.
And tell them if you're a higher belt to tell them to chill a little bit, but understand that they may not be able to. So just keep them tight. Here's one. So what do you think about cognitive enhancing pre-workouts like Discipline by Jocko Willink? I don't know. I've never tried Jocko supplements. I don't take pre-workout. Jiu-jitsu is awesome. I don't really need anything to get pumped up.
I also don't know what's in it. Like what's the thing and what's the research behind it?
I've never used it.
That's what I'm saying. That's what I would look into. And also, I mean, just try it out. If you feel like you have a hard time focusing, it might affect you differently than will somebody else. Some people might get a great benefit, and some people may not feel anything.
One of the best things I think for most people would be more rest and better diet. You will get amazing results out of sleeping a little bit more and eating better food. I know that people say, well, I can't, whatever. Just trust me on that one. Put down your phone at night, read a book instead of playing around on your phone before you go to bed.
All right, Chewy, I got one from E. Lucas.
I see that one. I was going to answer that one too. Good.
What do you think of sports psychology and using it for competition prep?
By sports psychology, I don't know exactly what you're talking about, but I assume you're talking about like visualization and like affirmation, things like this. And to me, aside from jiu-jitsu, right? Visualization, affirmation, all these things, they're beautiful for like not just jiu-jitsu but life in general. Like if you're going into a situation where sometimes you're unsure of yourself and you need to like center yourself to get ready for it, it's definitely helpful. Because a lot of times when it comes to putting yourself in these difficult situations, whether it be a competition, going out on your own and doing a business, or talking to a girl, whatever the hell it is, right? There has to be a little bit of this cart before the horse mentality, right? Like you're not going to feel ready for these things most of the time. What's going to happen is you're going to start doing them, and then you're going to feel ready afterwards. Because like for instance, I've been in competitions before where I was a white belt up against a purple belt. I didn't feel ready. I thought I was going to get smashed, but I'm like, fuck it, I'm here, let's go, and I ended up winning. Right? Or there's been times where in like the business type stuff, I didn't feel ready to be the head of a gym. I didn't know that I was going to be successful. I was just like, I don't know. I got to at least jump into it. Then worked out great, right? So sometimes you just gotta use those things. I think they're very helpful to help get yourself going towards that thing that you're working at and get you started. Because then if you can get started, you can get going. If you can just get going with a little bit of courage, it's super helpful to get going. And then afterwards, you realize that you had it in you all along, and so it wasn't as big.
I think the visualization is huge. I mean, seeing, if for tournament wise or jiu-jitsu tournament, you're seeing yourself hitting these techniques. And I think that's even been proven. I think
I do it every tournament.
You have to,
because
that way you have a game plan. That's kind of part of game planning is I think visualizing you hitting the techniques. So, and also for me, I like meditation.
Meditation.
I say that, and I don't do it enough. And like I get so much benefit.
How often do you think you meditate?
Shit, man, I don't know. Maybe I try to get once a day, but I definitely don't get once a day. I probably get like 3.
I'm once a day.
3 times a week, maybe. And it's insane because the benefits are so radical. For me personally, it calms me down. I'm engaging, because they've shown kind of when you're getting that diaphragm engaged and you're breathing, concentrating your breathing, you're getting that parasympathetic nervous system going, which calms you down. It's been proven to literally help you kind of relax.
Yeah.
And it's so important, like, you know, because I've been dealing with some stressful shit lately, and I'm just like,
Yeah.
I don't do that enough, and I find benefits. So I think being more disciplined in
Yes.
taking time away to do it.
Well, here's the thing: is when you decide that you want to do something that's going to be like that, it's like something that's good for you. A lot of times, we give so much of our energy away to everything else. Like like if you have a job, your job. If you have people that you need you do it to that. But then it's hard pressed to like do things for yourself, right? Like that. Those are the things that always slack, right? The things that you want to do for you, those are the things you always give up first. And to me, it's like, you know, I learned this several years ago. You know, you got to literally, like, you got to draw a boundary around your life and what you think are essentials. And maybe that's like a time period. You have to give yourself time and space to do those things. For me, like, you know, there's a specific time that I allow myself to do meditation, to do all these different things, and it just doesn't change. Like, no matter what, this stays. Everything else can be adjusted. This stays, and this is my non-negotiable. Like, people will ask, hey, can we do this thing at this time? I'm like, I can't do it. I got to do this. Or they'll say, hey, can we do this? No, I got to do this. And you have to fight. You got to take the same amount of, like, the same type of energy that you take to your hard rolling, your competitions, you know, that same sort of aggressive fighting energy. You got to take it to the same thing of upholding your boundaries, right? Like, because it'll be like, hey, Eugene, like, you're getting ready to meditate, sit down, all of a sudden, ring, ring, ring. Hey, I need you to do this thing. Nope, I gotta meditate. I gotta do my thing first. I'll do me first, and I'll do you. You know, but again, what happens is we're all guilty of it at some point. Ring, 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 we get a call, we get an email, we get this, that, whatever, and then all of a sudden we end up diverting off of the thing that we know we need to do, and then our whole damn day's fucked.
Yeah, 100%.
You know?
I agree. Yeah, I do that all the time. You know, you kind of put yourself last almost, and
it's because we're shitty to ourselves.
Yeah,
we're tyrants.
All right. Let's see. Sean. Let's see if anything else. Chew, you got anything else you like?
Let me take a look here. The Simple Dudes. Planning on starting jiu-jitsu in a week or two. Is there like a diet or some food that would keep my energy up and allow my body to recharge and refuel when I'm not training? I'll say this again and again. If you focus on foods that do not come out of a package, it's a good start. Don't eat
processed shit.
My buddy Joe, he has a thing that he says, don't eat shit. And for the most part, we have a good idea of it. But I like to break it down like this. Just think of whole foods, things that you have to prepare. Lean meat, lots of veggies. If you're going to eat some carbohydrates, eat some things like sweet potatoes, berries, things like that, nuts and seeds. I mean, if you eat those sorts of things, it's hard to go wrong. I mean, that's what I eat on a daily basis, and I feel so much better from it. And you know, get rid of for me, you might want to do a food allergy test to see if you are too, but I'm allergic to certain foods. I got rid of those foods, and I have a lot less inflammation in my body. So, you know, take it for what you want. But for the most part, you can start off with just eating good foods, and you'll have plenty of energy because you're going to be getting good micronutrient-dense food. Story time, Gribble. Come on. I'm just reading these things.
So, Chewy, here's one.
Yeah.
Batman Wayne.
Batman Wayne.
I love
sure.
that. That's
okay.
great. It says, I keep getting told to improve my posture and technique when breaking guards. What does that mean? I keep my back as straight as I can and my arms straight, yet I get that comment all the time.
I think that he should ask his coach because I would have to see him to know like what exactly is going on.
Yeah.
I don't know if his posture is getting broken, but I think that's one of those things you're gonna have to ask your coach.
Right.
Like, hey, coach, like, can you elaborate on that? And again, like, you guys should. If you ever have something where you're curious about what your coach is talking about, man, ask your coach. That's what they're there for. Even if you're nervous about asking them or you don't want to be a bother, ask them. That's what you're paying them for. They're there to help you. Like, I have guys that sometimes will ask me questions, and you know, it's like, hey, I need some help with something, you know, and I'm like, sure, come on in. Like, let's sit down for a few minutes and talk.
Well, I think one thing you were talking about actually for your guard when you had a hard time keeping posture and guard was your ankle mobility and your knee mobility.
Yes.
So that's maybe something to look at too, from not maybe a way of like, are you doing everything correctly? You just make sure you have the adequate mobility in your ankles and knees that allows you to get in that upright position so your guard so your posture isn't broken as easily.
Right. Yeah. So what Eugene's talking about is I used to have a problem when I was inside full guard for a long time, where when I would sit back, when I would have my knees on the mat and I would sit back on my heels, I couldn't sit all the way back like my butt to my heels, and so I was always leaning forward. So when I was in full guard, I was almost always halfway forward, and it was very easy for people to break my posture down. Even though my back would be straight, my body was so leaning, like so much leaning forward that they could pull me down and break my posture, and it was terrible. Full guard used to be my worst position. After improving the mobility of my knees and my ankles, I was able to sit back much more, and I was actually able to work from a full guard much more effectively.
That's good. Yeah. I forgot who asked this, but it was, are knee bars too advanced for white belts?
I don't think so. I learned how to do knee bars when I was a white belt, and we never had any problems with them. Knee bars, a nice straight lock. I think that it requires a fair amount of control to actually execute. Like where you can get into a heel hook. Sometimes you can get into a heel hook with not as much control of the body. The knee bar, you've got to have a pretty good amount of control on that body.
Bite on the,
and it's a straight lock too. There's no, granted you can sit to the side, pull it off to the side, but for the most part, a normal straight knee bar, it has that straight lock, and I think it's fine. And honestly, I say this again and again. We teach leg locks in the gym a lot, and since we started teaching them, we have less injuries from them. Because we go over not just how to submit someone, we go over the defense, and we also go over, hey guys, here's how to apply safely, and here's how to tap safely, right? Which just means like, don't ever go to the point where you're popping out limbs, right?
Yep.
Like so basically, if you get someone in a heel hook, you catch and you hold, and you look at them, right? Again, you should be exercising a fair amount of control, but if it gets to the point where you feel like you're gonna have to rip it, you come grab one of us, right? So we can basically educate in that situation. And from the other person, when you get caught, when there's that tightness, right? When it's tight, that's when you tap. You don't do any more, right? You don't continue to wait for someone to rip your ankle off. When you're caught in a submission, going back to what we were talking about to submissions earlier, right? No one in the gym wants to hurt each other, right? So like even in an armbar, if I get someone in an armbar, I get the armbar locked out to the point where it's straight. I never go beyond that. I'll never go beyond that unless we're in a situation where I have to, because I want to go there and exercise control. And I'm going to stop. I've even had situations where I was rolling with one of my brown belts, like who was like really Nate, right? And Nate's fighting out of it, and he's fighting out, and I'm holding, and I'm just like, Nate, is it there? He's like, yeah, it's there. You can talk to each other, right? And so you got to kind of know. And then granted, there are some people that are super flexible, but for the most people aren't. And I think it's really wise to get to that point with your training partners where you hold and you maintain control, but never take it beyond that point. And if you are the person getting submitted, you got to just say, look, I'm done. Tap. Right? It's tight. We don't want it to go to hurt. We want tight control, not hurt. But I think knee bars are fine. I don't see the problem with them.
Yeah, I think training that stuff. We talked about training some of these submissions, that maybe have a perceived increased danger. I don't know. But I think the more you train them, the more you get comfortable in them, being in them, and also applying them correctly, like you said. And also just know when you're in a bad position and where it's kind of time to tap. So if you've never been in that, and you just feel pressure, and you're like, okay, this just feels like pressure, and they don't realize that if they go further, that you could damage some ligaments in that.
That's right.
And so for sure, I think being in there, knowing, okay, that pressure is about all my body can withstand, and that's I need to go and tap out if I'm stuck.
Yeah, because that's one of the big things I think that comes from education / experience, right? Because we've all, especially us guys that train in the old school way, which is where you just jump in the first day and you're basically being fed to the wolves.
Get your ass kicked.
Yeah, you learn pretty quickly what your body can take because you get beat up. I don't think it's the smartest way, but it's just what we happen. So
that's the way it was.
It's the way it was.
I feel like we talk about that too, and you're not catering as much to the. Because there's a fine line. There's somebody that's going to come in, and they're going to walk that line of whether I might stick around or I might not. You can push them either way, and if they aren't used to that really, really heavy, maybe very physical kind of nature, come in, you're kind of getting beat down, and they're not mentally kind of able to come back. Some people are like that. Some people are resilient, more resilient than others, I guess. And some people are just like, I don't need this shit. I don't need to keep getting the shit beat out of me for no reason, or don't feel like I'm getting any better. Because sometimes it's hard to be there and not feel like you're not improving. But every time you're there, you are improving. It may be a little bit at a time, but just keep coming back, and then you get better.
And see, this is the buy-in. This is the buy-in to jiu-jitsu, and this is why I love it so much, because you can't circumvent it. You can't get around it, right?
Yep.
We live in a time now where like people they'll read some information that someone else produced, and they'll jump on the internet and act like an expert, right? Like they'll just start talking about it. But when you do jiu-jitsu, like you roll, you can't circumvent that system. If you want to be good, it is a skill, just like again playing a guitar. You can't fake being good at playing a guitar, right? I mean, I'm sure there's some way you could fake it, but I'm saying like actually being able to sit there, someone hands you a guitar and being able to just riff on it, right? You can't fake that. You have to learn that skill. And the cool thing about jiu-jitsu is that the only way you get good is you got to pay the dues. You got to get in there. You got to train. Now, there's ways to do it, I think, intelligently, where you bring people up slowly. So this way, you take those people that, because I think there's like a spectrum of people. You have people that it doesn't matter how you package it up, they're never going to stick with jiu-jitsu because it's just not for them. They're not ready for it mentally or physically. And then you got people that are really that it doesn't matter how you, like us. We got thrown to the wolves our first days, right? Didn't matter. We stuck with it. It was for us. Then you got people in the middle. Guys like, I think Ben Fowler was one of these guys. Ben Fowler is one of my students that came in, and he was so nervous about coming to the gym. He sat out, he would come up to the gym, drive up, look at our sign, see that we were open, drive away for 6 months.
That's crazy.
Right? He was so nervous to come in. He eventually came in and was like so pissed that he didn't come in sooner. He started training.
Yeah.
He's getting ready. He's fought before in MMA. He's won tons of jiu-jitsu tournaments. He's a brown belt now. He's become a student who he's all about it, right? He loves it. And so I think that you can convert people if you do it smart and then subject them to the hard-ass training later on. But I think that
gradual.
Exactly. And I think that that's the way to do it. But, I just... get a different way of doing things,
Yeah. Do you have any issues with people like, I just want to get to the next belt, or I just want to get, like, how do I get better? And I think it's simple. Just put the time in.
Yeah.
Like, you have to put time
well,
in.
you got to put
some
time
people
in.
just want to, like, get to the next belt. Is
Right.
that a bad motivator? Like, I mean, I think it kind of, because a lot of times...
It's not a bad motivator if you set it on the back burner, right?
Okay.
So, for instance, like, we all have goals. Or you should have goals. If you don't have goals, you need to put some fucking goals down. But write some goals. And if you have those like long-term goals, those ones that are going to take you a year to 2 years or whatever, you put those in the back burner.
Mm-hmm.
And then you have your goals, your day-to-day goals. And those are the things that make that thing possible, right? And so, for instance, a goal might be, let's say, purple belt, okay? Well, what do we need to do to make purple belt happen? Well, we train.
Mm-hmm.
And we train X amount of days a week. And that's my goal. My goal is not to have a good class. My goal is not to get a submission. My goal is not to do anything. My goal is just to show up like X amount of days a week, right? Because I know if I do that, then I'm going to be giving myself ample opportunity to learn and get better. It could be going to a seminar X amount of times a year. It could be doing a private lesson with your coach X amount of times. It could be simply doing extra drilling. It could be, whatever you think that might help you the most. Mm-hmm. You can set those goals a number of ways, but you have to have those things lined up. And you let those long-term goals, they sit on the back burner. But your day-to-day focus should not be on long-term achievement that you don't even get to decide on. It's from someone else. You should be focused on what is it within your power to do right now. And you can train. You can get in the gym and train. You can watch videos and you can take notes. You can do all sorts of different things. And those are the things that you should be focusing on.
Yeah, I don't think there's any shortcuts. You just got to put time in. Some people put more time in. Some people put less time in. It takes them longer.
Mm-hmm. And I think
some people catch on faster too.
Right. And some people catch on faster. And I think that you can train smart. Like you can train and put some focused training into your regimen instead of simply just showing up and like just mindlessly going through class. Like be really focused on like, okay, I'm here today. I'm working on this technique. I'm working on this move because I tell you just over and over again. I tell people this every time I want to like get my game better, because there's times to just let your body relax and enjoy training, to basically take the stress out of your life and just dump it out. But like right now I'm getting ready for something, or if I'm trying to build my back position, whatever it is, I step on the mat with purpose. When you roll with me, there's purpose. If you roll with me right now, you know exactly where I'm going. Like when I rolled Saturday, everybody I rolled with, I took their back. They all knew what I was going after.
So annoying, by the way.
But that's where I'm going.
When we say that.
Okay, but think about that though. That's purpose. I'm not just seeing what happens. I'm on a mission. I want that thing. And so that's something that I'm working on, and that was my goal that day. That my goal was not to, just train. My goal was like, I'm taking the back today. And I'm going to get, every person I roll with, I'm taking their back at least once. That's what my goal was. And so, people have to set those goals along the way too, because it helps give them purpose with their training rather than just, mindlessly going about it.
So my goal is don't let you take my back, which never works.
Right. I'm going to find my way there. I want to find my way there.
I was like,
what role does creativity play in your training? Do you find yourself training and ending in odd positions and try to making them into something that works for you? This is from late EF 1029. So creativity. I think creativity is one of these things where creativity comes from, I think, discipline, right? Like, so when you continue to put the work in. So for instance, there's several books by Stephen Pressfield, right? And like The War of Art, that's a good one. And he talks about taking the lunch pail mentality to your creative endeavors, right? So there's going to be, he was talking about, you know, where some people are waiting for this creative muse to spark in them, right? He says it's every day from 9 to 5 or whatever his working hours were, right? Because that's when he sits down and he writes. Come hell or high water, that's when he's writing. And so I think that a lot of times the creativity comes when you allow yourself to just get in there and train consistently over and over and over again. And that's where a lot of the creativity sparks from. I don't really think of myself as a very creative person, but when I'm training, with consistent training, that's where the creativity came from, because I'm just there. And I think that a lot of times I get more creative from a position the more that I play that position. Like I was talking about the back mount stuff. I've been focused on just the back mount for about a month now. And because of that, I'm starting to find all these new connections there because that's all I've been focusing on. And then what happens is guys know that, so they start defending, right? And then I'm still like for instance, I remember I was doing my kimura, the rolling kimura to the back. People stopped coming up to the back. They stopped giving me the space. So then I have to find another way using that same technique to get there. And so I got to be creative, right? I'm thinking about it. And so a lot of times, if you limit the options and focus on something, I sound like a broken record here today. Limit it and focus on something. I tend to find that it's more creative by being disciplined and really focusing on that thing for a while. That's where a lot of times my creativity comes from in the gym. What do you think?
I actually like I like flow rolling. I like to add that. So you're talking about
flow's good.
You're talking about really extrapolating a position. I'm going. Yeah. I like both.
Opening up.
Kind of opening up and letting the roll go where it will. And that way you are going to end up in some positions that maybe you're normally not in.
Yeah.
And so then you're like, oh wait, I haven't been here before. Let's play around, or let's see how I can get out, or what's a way I can. And because you're not getting that other person trying to smash you.
Sure.
Or they're letting you move, which is, I think for white belts, if they can learn how to flow roll, it is incredible because it opens up so many like ideas. And so for me, if you're going against brown belt versus brown belt, you guys have specific games that are very strong, and you know that I'm going to go to this position because this is where my best chance for victory is. You may not play different things with somebody of your equal skill level. So if you're allowing yourself to flow roll with somebody even of equal skill level, that's going to open up opportunities for both of you.
Absolutely. And I like the flow roll idea because it goes with some different studies that they've talked about where people, again, if you are in a more relaxed state, you're able to develop new connections more easily. This is a quick one. Rodri Evans says, what do you think of guillotines in the gi? I've seen Josh Hinger hit a few at high level, but a lot of people say it doesn't work, / low percentage in the gi. Man, honestly, the guillotine was told to me a long time ago that it was low percentage. I have since rolled with several people, including Josh Hinger, who have good guillotines, gi or no gi, and I disagree with it that it's a low percentage move. I think that any move that you decide to take down the rabbit hole can become a high percentage move because you get good with it. Mm-hmm. There's people that hit some really weird, strange moves, but it becomes their move. For instance, you have a loop choke. Loop choke's kind of a low percentage move for a lot of people. A lot of people don't hit it like you do, right? But for you, your percentage of it working in matches and stuff is pretty friggin' high. Mm-hmm. And so again, it depends on the person. I think that, it's hard to blanket a particular technique as low percentage or high percentage. To me, it really comes down to what is that person going after? What are they better with? And it might be their move. And they might have some weird, strange setup for it, and it works every time. So it just depends.
Yeah, So they're better at setting up, better at finishing it, better at finding avenues or openings for it. Chad hits triangles all the damn time.
Everywhere.
And triangles are, I wouldn't say low percentage at all. A lot of people hit them. It's a common submission.
Yep.
But the way Chad sets it up and then closes it and creates closes down the space.
Well, he has a lot of attacks from the triangle. We did a video series on my website. We call it Triangle Assault. Because he's assaulting with a million different, just a ton of different attacks from his triangle. For any of you guys that are triangle people out there, check that thing out because that's part of the magic of his triangle is that he's got a triangle, but he's got a ton of different arm bars. He has a bunch of weird finishes, and so even when you think you're safe, you're not really safe. Let's see. Here's another one I got. It says, what is it? 502 Crazy Jack. I don't know who that is.
All right.
502 Crazy Jack. Probably someone from around here, right? It says, any tips for work, gym, life, work, gym balance? Well, first off, brother, I'm not the best person to ask for balance. What I would say first is figure out what your priorities are, what's really important to you, and base that off of everything else. And then from there, I find a lot of benefit from taking these things. If you guys are watching, you'll see, but basically index cards. I have index cards every night before I go to bed. I sit up at my desk, and I write down my goals for the next day. This way, as soon as I wake up, as soon as my eyes open, I instantly know what I'm going for. I don't make it too big, just a few, right? And I basically detail my day out to the breakfast. It was like breakfast, coffee, this, that. You write this email, send this YouTube post, whatever it is, down to the wire. And I do that over and over again because for me, like, that helps keep me focused on what I'm supposed to do. If for some reason I had a goal the previous day that it didn't get accomplished, it goes onto the index card for the next day, and I get that damn thing done eventually. And that helps me kind of stay focused on things. So this way, if I get to that point, because for me, working for myself, I don't have someone breathing down my neck, so I have to stay on myself. So like, if I'm getting to a point where I'm fucking around on Facebook or something, I'll like, oh, well, I need to be doing work. What do I need to do? Boom, I pull up my index card, this, boom, and I right there, and then I throw it away at the end of the day. That's the thing I like doing. There are people that have like little journals and stuff like that. Like I bought a couple journals that were supposed to help organize, but they're just I don't do this all day with a journal. So instead, I just put this index card in my pocket, and whether it's always with me, so I can just boom, pull it out. What do I need to do? Boom, just get that done. So that's something that helps me. But I think it starts first with figuring out what your priorities are.
Yeah, I agree.
And then if you have your priorities set, then you know what you need to focus on. And then when you're doing your goals and you're figuring out what you're going to do the next day, if it doesn't line up with what your priorities are in your life, well, then you know you're messing up. Simple as that. But I'm not really good at balance because my life, for most people, would look imbalanced. But for me and my girlfriend and stuff, it works out just fine.
Setting a schedule, I think definitely. Like, you know, if you want to train jiu-jitsu, like I'm going to train 2 days a week, Mondays, Thursdays, whatever it is, and then work around that. You know, because I've got 2 kids and a job and jiu-jitsu, and so I try to figure out what are my priorities. You know, training with kids, obviously, and like the podcasting stuff. So I'm like, I make sure I set those up, and then I work around it. And I build around that stuff, which seems to help.
Good. Make the laughs. He says, how old is that gi hanging up? So for you guys that are watching this on YouTube, there's a gi hanging up in the office.
It's got tribal on it right there.
Yeah, so that is an old vitamins and minerals gi. That gi is about 14 years old. And so basically, my original gi is hanging up in a box in the little shadow box in the
Is that your first gi?
That's my first one's hanging up there in the hallway.
What kind of gi was that?
That's the Kimono, vitamins and minerals, right? Bombado. And then this one I bought about 6-7 months later, and or maybe a year, something like that. And I bought this one, and so when there's a little award that I give away to people, sort of in secrecy, but every now and then I'll give people shreds of my gi. I still have a couple pieces left from the original gi, but I give shreds of my gi away to other people, and that's like my original gi. I give you a piece of that, and I've given it to a few people. Like Flop actually had his stitched on his arm.
That's cool.
So he had this black gi, but he had this piece of blue gi on his shoulder, and that was my original pieces of my original gi.
Huh. That's interesting. I love it. It's got some. It's got a little age to it there, for sure.
14 years old, man.
A little, it's kind of broken in. All right. Let me see.
So if you guys want to throw out another question or two, we'll answer it, and then we'll wrap this thing up today with you guys. Did we hit all our... Was there anything we missed?
I think we got everything.
Cool.
I think we got everything. One of them was, and we can... just handling, because about injuries wise, if you have a student that's prone to injure others, how do you handle that?
Oh, sure.
You've talked about that before, maybe on a video.
So if I have someone that's prone to injure others, I typically take them to the side and talk to them first, and I try to give them the rundown. And again, we don't have this very much anymore because I try to make it very explicitly clear. Here's how we attack submissions. Like in our white belt classes, I even talk about, hey guys, here's how we submit people. Right, we never go past the breaking point. Right, you kind of get the idea. So it doesn't really happen very much, but there have been times in the past where we had people that either would try to hurt other people or people that would not tap. I've had both of those problems, and I first talk to those people, and we'll have a conversation. If we have someone that's being a little bit too rough, we'll get a little rough with him, so he can have contrast. So this way, hey, you know how this feels, right? Like we had a guy last year that was being a little too rough, and he was kind of being a little bit egotistical, so we rolled with him and let him know that like a lot of the higher belts were taking it easy on him, helping him, and then we went full speed, and then he was asking if something was wrong. We're like, no, we just have levels. Do you see how that works? Treat your partners with respect, Because again, we can all go a little harder, right? There's always a bigger fish on the mat than you are, right? There's always someone in jiu-jitsu that's better. And then if someone ever has a continuing problem, now I just kick them out. Like, I have no problem.
Have you had to do that? Have you done that?
No, I've never had to kick anybody out, but it's like in my protocol, right? It's there. So if we exhaust these other avenues to save you, if you continue to be a negative influence on the culture of the gym, you're out. You're done. Because the gym culture, it's if someone being nasty like that can be very cancerous to it and spreads. Because then if someone else comes in and they're new, they basically take that up. I guess this is the way we train, right? Or people won't want to come in because like, man, I don't want to roll that guy because he's always like trying to hurt people or whatever. And so it's like, I don't want to deal with it, And so for me, like, I address it, try to nip it in the bud. And a lot of my higher belts, they're all in they're kind of my eyes and ears when I'm not there, and they let me know, hey man, be watchful, so and so. And if the guy if he continues to do it, he's out, man. So.
All right, here's a good question. One last one. It's this very a broad question. I think there's not a right answer.
Okay.
Ratio of training, I guess rolling to drilling.
Rolling to drilling, huh?
What's a good ratio?
What is a good ratio? Well, that's going to be different. I think there should be some undulation. I think that you should not train at the same capacity every single day, especially if you're going heavy.
Yeah.
As far as like rolling, I don't think you should train heavy rolling capacity every single day, back to back to back to back, because you're gonna something bad's gonna happen. You're gonna get injured, or you're not gonna feel good, whatever. But as far as how much, it really depends. I think that when you're getting ready for a competition, you're gonna have to have some more days that are gonna be more intense. You're gonna have to have a little bit more rolling. I think that people could get a lot of actual benefit from doing good drills, not just like slow technique, but drilling. I don't have an exact sort of idea on that, because I think that everybody's bodies is different. Like the amount of rolling that I can withstand is way more than most people, because my body has adapted to jiu-jitsu so much.
Yeah.
So I don't, my body does not take on the same amount of punishment from rolling that it does from other people. In the beginning, I think you should probably roll a little bit less. As you get more understanding of the positions and you get better, you can ramp it up a little bit more, but ultimately you have to listen to your body. So if your body's like getting wrecked, ease up a bit, so.
Yeah, that's a good point, because there's a lot more less control. People have less control. You're going in different positions,
right.
and a lot more intensity going on. So like you said, injuries can happen, and also increased likelihood for injury as well, because there's a lot more, like I say, there's more variables that come into play for sure. So I think a great point is depending on what, if you're getting ready close to competition, or I think that your drilling should pretty much been you should have secured your positions, things you're going to do, and the drilling is really important. But then you want to execute that and try to execute at a high level and high speed. So yeah, for sure.
Depends, yeah.
All right, so we're gonna have another recap podcast on Thursday.
Another recap podcast, yeah.
A couple of videos that you've done in the past, so that's coming out. We are on Stitcher and iTunes and on jiu-jitsu.net.
Yeah, the page should be finished up, so they'll see it up soon on jiu-jitsu.net. But if you guys haven't done so, you can always listen to these on the actual your podcast apps. Check us out there, and if you enjoy the podcast, give us a review. It just helps us out and lets us know, and this way we can continue.
Yeah, if anybody you want to see on the podcast as well, if anybody you want us to interview,
we're great. Starting to take guests, so if anybody wants to see someone on the podcast and wants to see us talk, definitely throw them out there. But yeah, otherwise, guys, thanks for joining us today on this live feed, and that's it. Eugene, got anything, brother?
No, thank you guys for tuning in. We'll see y'all next time.